with product of our alma mater, Belen Jesuit, a guy who
shout out Belen Baseball,
did it the hard way and has sneakily become, one of the more, useful, productive, right-handers. You got over 10 WAR in his career, with a huge chunk of that spent overseas. Four full seasons in Japan, right there in the middle, and it doesn't get the fanfare necessarily that someone who throws 3 miles an hour is going to get. But man, is he valuable to clubs like the Cincinnati Reds. Team USA pitcher as well in the World Baseball Classic, and just really an inspirational story for a lot of pitchers that had to go the hard route. And that is Nick Martinez. There you see 1.5 WAR already this year, 94 innings pitched, 10.4 for his career. And really, since he came back from Japan there at the turn of the decade, it has been consistent production on the mound. What can you tell me about your friend and somebody who had, your friend, but somebody you just admire their career like a Nick Martinez?
This is probably my favorite story overall in all of baseball. I am biased. Nicky and I do go kind of all the way back to the baseball journey. We played travel ball growing up together. Then we played at the same high school. So he was a teammate. He was 1 year younger than me, but we were teammates throughout high school, and then have remained close through his whole journey, from Fordham to getting selected to all that. And it feels like I always sound biased when I'm making an argument in his case, in his direction, but because he shows at every turn that where determination, hard work, and athleticism gets you. He was always exceptionally athletic, even when he wasn't physical enough yet to be where he's at now. And now he's physical, athletic, but also ultimate example of guy does the right thing on every item, especially as it relates to how you treat your body, how you prepare for success, how you get the most out of your stuff, how you reinvent yourself when it's necessary. So Nick Martinez goes from being an infielder in high school, which didn't get a whole lot of run in high school until his senior year, then goes and gets recruited to Fordham, which was also a Jesuit school.
Wait, before that, did he pitch in high school on top of playing infield?
I remember Nicky always being one of the more athletic kids on the field, but always more on the defensive, really good defensive actions, good arm. But I never remembered him pitching in high school at all. He may have done so before that a little bit. And he goes to Fordham mostly as a second baseman, left-handed hitting second baseman with good actions. And then works his way into, he plays, so he's an everyday contributor to Fordham as a position player, but then starts throwing in the seventh, working his way into more of a closer type role because he started to get more physical. He wasn't ready to be evaluated out of high school like a lot of other players. Goes to Fordham.
You're talking about just size,
just physically, mentally, emotionally, athletically, guys hit their strides at different points. And I think Nick started to hit it while he was in college. And so when the draft came around, I still remember the day he called me about the draft. They called him in the 18th round, and I think they offered him $60,000 in the 18th round as a pitcher. And he was a primary position player. And I remember having that discussion with him, and the calculus made sense. I think he had one more year left of school, and so it was 60 plus to school. And there commenced his journey with the Texas Rangers in the minor leagues. And Nick went into a loaded Texas Rangers system, just a bunch of dudes in there. Kyle Hendricks, Jorge Alfaro. If you look at that run for the Texas Rangers, a lot of big leaguers placed from that point in time. But what's interesting about Nick is that he got there really fast, actually. If you look at, despite not pitching very much in college, in the pros, he got to the big leagues very fast because he threw strikes and he can always be available to pitch and pitch like a starter, multiple innings. But he gets to the big leagues, and this was in the era before teams were maximizing pitchers' own arsenals. So I think Nick got to the big leagues in a way where he may have been more sinker slider, only to kind of find his way onto the back of get put on option, big leagues, AAA. He's kind of always on that option train. That's hard to entrench there. And it's also hard to make money there because your service time is always fractured and broken. So you don't ever really get to collect this big service time going up and down. And your options run quickly because you get three options. And if they burn, if you're always on that train, those three options burn. So you get put in the spot. It matters because when you're a player out of options and you're not a top, a starter or a primary reliever on that team, you can't get optioned when you're out of them. And so a team has to make a decision on, okay, am I going to take this guy off the 40-man roster? Am I going to designate him for assignment? And I think Nicky got put into that territory with the Rangers. And then Japan at that point presents itself as a place to make money and also be a starter again. He could have probably signed a bunch of minor league deals that would have turned into a major league deal, but he makes the bet that I can make more money in Japan. It's right there available to me. And I think Miles Mikolas had just happened at that point. So there's an argument that you could see a path to leaving, coming back, and still making free agency dollars. And I remember Miles Mikolas being that template at the time, making the decision. But it's still a gamble to go, now you move your entire family out to Japan just to live a life. And I think he gets to Japan and realizes he has to really fundamentally shift the way he's attacking how to get hitters out. In Japan, this high contact league is all of a sudden not offering swing and miss in the places where he was already on the margins swing and miss wise. And now in Japan, you just kind of have to figure out, okay, if they're going to put it in play, where can I have them put it in play that it's not going to work for them? And then I think also in Japan, he realizes that maybe I'm more of a four-seam 12-6 curveball guy, which the natural traits on those two pitches were always very strong. But he was pitching primarily sinker slider because that was more organizational philosophy for Texas. So not even his own fault necessarily. The pitching philosophy of the organization he was in wasn't suited to his best profile. And I think he discovers that in Japan. And I think when he opens up that north-south attack angle of a four-seamer that can get up above bats and this 12-6 breaking ball, he always had a good changeup. So like, I think his arsenal opened up in Japan and he figured out how to go deep in games in Japan.
Is that more common in Japan, by the way? I know you're not a Japan expert, but that profile with the kind of the old school fastball, curveball, I know they have a lot of stuff that they throw over there.
Yeah, I think the fastball is just used to look like sinkers more than they do now. Now you're seeing a lot of four-seamers with ride at the top of the zone, and if a guy can sink it, he'll also still do that. But I think the curveball's been around for a while for a reason, but there are only a few guys who can throw a really true 12-6 breaking ball that could spin 28 to 3,200 RPM and have that real bite and power and to be able to land it for strikes. So it's a hard thing to do. That's why a lot of guys go to the slider. It's shorter break, shorter action. You can control it better and you throw it harder. But Nick, I think when the profile changed, to me, it's when the four-seamer at the top of the zone opened up. He already had a good sinker and he already had a good changeup. So it just gave him a couple more weapons to get off barrels. And when that happened, then I think the world opened up. And then, he gets a chance to prove it again here in the big leagues and find a whole other path. I think he wanted to be a starter, but finds a path into a relief role. But shout out to Nick Martinez for being able to pitch at elite form wherever he is in the game, and also give your team, your manager, probably one of the more valuable assets in your entire pitching staff, that if you needed this guy to do any one thing in a series, start a game, come back between starts, and impact you in the seventh inning, that is a really rare trait. And I think I can't say enough good things about him. That's why I get excited when he takes a no-no into the ninth inning. And in this past week, he started started probably a week before that, got shelled, wasn't his best start, then comes out in a leverage inning as a reliever midweek, and then goes out and does this that next day or that next outing. So it shows the range of things he could do and things that he could do well. And I think what he means to the Reds and for that pitching staff is beyond just whatever an ERA says. It's like, but again, he does all the things right. Nick was one of the first guys that I remember really focusing on. It used to be called the Modus sleeve, and now it's called the Pulse, I think, which is basically like a sleeve that you put on, and it tracks almost every single throw that you make, if not every single throw. So I know that Nick is always throwing in the offseason with like a phone, and he's always able to measure where my intensity's at, where's my volume this week, down to the day, down to it spits out a grade that tells you, hey, you're good today to go this amount, and you're that. Most guys allow that to be subjective on their end. Oh, I feel good today. Like, I don't really know what my total volume has been. A good pitching coach will keep track of it, but I think what Nick has always done is and he's, knock on wood, remained remarkably healthy through a long stretch. thanks to his emphasis on strength and conditioning, but also he knows what's happening with his arm at all times, and he can always prepare and adjust accordingly, whether that be for a 5-day ramp up into a start where you got to go 100 pitches or 6 innings, or you got to be ready to go that night in the 7th, and you don't know when you're going to get hot. You might go in the 8th, and that's a whole different way to get prepared for a game. So to be able to impact the game both ways, there's a litany of reasons why that's way harder than people think it is. And to be able to bounce between those roles, even harder. So for this to be happening right now, I think he deserves his credit. I think, I hope this makes him a lot of money this offseason, because last year he got the qualifying offer, like $21 million offer on 1-year basis. That means his organization decided, like, yeah, he's worth that amount. And it's good to see him kind of have public reasons showing why.
4-WAR player that year. And just look at the numbers coming back from Japan. This is from 22 on. So I know we're not talking about ERA only, but ERA plus 109, 123, 143. Now this year, 109 innings over, triple digits all 3 years. Then this year, not already 94 innings. If he, knock on wood, stay healthy, we're talking about career high in innings this year, almost guaranteed. Yep. So just a very unique weapon for Cincinnati, who's different than their other guys, but pretty unique in his own way. I mean, it's like you just have to have a guy like this. It can fill so many holes.
And unique in his mindset too. I think you spend any amount of time around him and his girls, he has 3 daughters. And I think you spend any amount of time around him, he seems like incredibly balanced, but also when it's time to lock in, there is a clear the mechanism and for the love of the game thing that happens that he's able to do that I've really learned a lot from as a baseball observer, executive evaluator. Like I'm looking for more of what he does, because I think what that part of it is underrated in terms of his ability to leverage what a scout would say is slightly above average stuff, not elite premium stuff. Maybe the changeup is an elite territory, but like, how does that get this out of, maybe, slightly above average tools? And then when you spend any amount of time with him, it comes out. And so therefore I've used him. He impacts pitcher evaluation a lot more than he thinks he does. And then I've told him that he does, because I've learned a lot, like, okay, you can get there if you do some of these things, and not all of those things are innate or stuff based. You can develop at the big league level, after the big league level, in Asia, come back and still make money. That's as good a story of perseverance and persistence as any. And so it's good to see him getting rewarded with that now financially and taking a no-hitter into the 9th. Like the whole baseball world focuses in. You get every Twitter update, like no into the 9th, stuff like that. So just cool for him to get a moment like that.
Look, we have not been around enough to know what old school really looks like, but I mean, it feels old school, man. You just look at the versatility, the innings. You look at the profile. Where's he elite? Walks, not getting hit hard.
Yep.
So it feels like when you hear, again, we weren't around for a lot of it, or we were just little kids. It feels like there were more guys like this back in the day that didn't get, they were durable, that ate up innings, that avoided hard contact, that threw strikes, that were professional in their approach, that protected their body. Not that they don't do it now, but those guys are Ferraris, right? It just feels like this is a guy that could have played really in any era, and obviously is having a lot of success in this particular era.
For sure. And I love putting his high school, our high school, on the map in terms of, an established big leaguer in the big leagues. As far as the Belen baseball program is concerned, that's a recruiting pitch. That's like something you would love to have happen, especially like with what the odds were for it to be here. Yet here we are. So yeah, I can't say enough good things, and really excited to watch him. Things like this help you push into the deadline, and depending on how they're playing, I think he'll be a really interesting trade item or discussion no matter what, because any team can use what he does. Hopefully it's the Reds making a push, because I know that's where Nick is at, right, mentally. But I think if the Reds kind of fall off, you may see him as like a hot name trade deadline wise, because he's on an expiring contract, in this capability to do these multiple roles, which that importance, I can't tell you how much that gets magnified going into the postseason, where a guy can be, maybe he's available to you 3 times in a series, twice as a starter, once as a leverage late in the game weapon. That gives you a pitching weapon in your staff that it's hard to quantify how valuable that is in a postseason. But I think ask any postseason team, and they'll grab that if they can. So I think if he's available in any capacity, that we'll see that. And I think we'll see him targeted aggressively in free agency as well.
Yeah, look, I don't know what his plan is. You might know better than me. And obviously you're always hoping for the best with injuries, but it feels like even though he's in his mid-30s, it's not like the end of the road here, right? There's some tread on the tires, maybe more so than the average person of his age, just with the way he gets down.
Again, get up close to him and see him, and you'll see this is a big, physical, strong man that spends a lot of time, money, and effort into making sure that exactly that he can disprove exactly that. Like, okay, the mid-30s doesn't have to be this kind of a death of a pitcher. For the guys that don't do all the extra things and that don't prioritize them at a crazy level, I think this is a natural point. The mid-30s are a natural point where things start to decline. But I think other guys have proven otherwise. You got Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, all these guys pitching well into their 40s. Schilling, this is Rich Hill has been pitching, deep, meaningful games into his late 30s, early 40s. Charlie Morton, and there's money to be made there as well. So that's a pretty good incentivizer to do it. But I think if you get up on him and you watch his between starts, you'll see like, okay, if I'm going to bet on a guy in his mid-30s, he needs to do X, Y, Z. I think he does X, Y, Z well. So, yeah.
Doing it on the mound, man. So shout out to Nick Martinez.